You saw the title of this video, you know what you're here for. We're going to see Seth annihilate Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones. Out of all the pre-promotes in Fire Emblem, Seth is definitely among the strongest. Usually the early pre-promotes have bad growths to combat their strong early game presence, but Seth definitely breaks the mold on that. He has amazing bases that align with his excellent 90 HP growth, 50 strength, 40 skill, 50 speed, 40 luck, 25 defense, which sucks, but he has decent bases in defense already, and 20 res, which is also pretty bad, but with his collective stat boosters that we can get in the game, it should be too much of an issue, and of course, mages aren't really that big of an issue in Fire Emblem 8. I'm playing some of the early game in the background because Seth really runs through these early levels. The prologue is a cakewalk, and the only difficulty in Chapter 1 is getting your units out of harm's way. Since I'm not smart enough to mod the game to make Seth our main character, I've opted to only use Seth for combat and only use Erica to access the convoy. I do use other units for this run for the utility to get Erica out of harm's way, but the only rule we're going to be following is with Seth is to handle all the combat interactions himself. There are no restraints on the convoy because I wanted this to be fun, and I thought it's funny every time that Seth has to use the convoy, he has to run back to Erica wherever she is. So I think this is going to be a fun run. Let's see where we can go, and let's see where we are right now with our first major battle in Chapter 3. I'm able to recruit Ross and Garcia so they can be out of combat as much as possible. I actually messed up here with my uses of Seth since I did not move my other units out of harm's way enough to stop them from being attacked. I was trying to stop the bandits from destroying the village at the bottom, but I later found out that there was only a pure water in there, which might be useful later, but for right now it's not really useful, so there's no reason for me to actually do that. And this is the moment where I realized I barely remember anything about this game. I'm doing this run mostly blindfolded, and that might come to bite me in the back later, but we're gonna see. But this chapter was pretty easy, so I was able to clean it up and clear the chapter without much issue. Chapter 3 is much the same. We used Trash Archer number 8 to recruit Calm to stop him from stealing everything, and then I had to make a choice. Would I use Thief utility in this run? I decided not to this time because it seemed a little broken to allow thieves to pick locks and open chests for me. I wanted to use a chest and door keys efficiently instead of relying on thieves, and I think this was a good decision, but I'm writing this script as I'm playing the game, so maybe this isn't a good choice and I probably will regret it. But anyway, we get to this chapter pretty easy and kill the boss without any issue, giving us another level up, which is actually exactly what we're looking for. We got HP, strength, and speed. So far, our Seth is looking pretty average, but I think average Seth can still beat the Dark God, so we are resetting now. Now on to Chapter 4. We are forced to play Archer for some reason, so we have to deal with that, but this chapter is also a cakewalk. The only problem is these evil eye enemies that don't even do that much damage, honestly. They just attack at 2 range, so it makes it take a lot longer, and I'm not trying to use the only javelin I have right now to attack them, so I'm wasting all my turns trying to kill them. But these enemies also have a lot of health, so it usually takes me 2 hits to actually take them out, which is breaking all of my weapons. So it makes this imagery in my head where I imagine a situation where Seth is out here murdering all the enemies while he runs back to Erica to get more weapons. Erica's become a pack mule. But we end up recruiting Blue for no reason and move on to the infamous Chapter 5. This chapter used to give me so much trouble as a kid when trying to recruit Joshua, so I thought this time I decided I wanted to kill Joshua to get revenge for my childhood. So I pushed Seth up there, tried to get him killed, and I realized if I killed Joshua, I wouldn't be able to get the killing edge. So funny enough, Seth got crit by that same killing edge, so this really cemented the idea that I needed that weapon. And I also recently learned that Joshua won't attack Natasha, so I ended up moving Seth back so I can get her close enough for the recruitment. After Joshua was recruited, I took out the rest of the enemies, bought some items, sold some stuff, and had a quick 1v1 with the boss, and we were done. Chapter 5 was over. Chapter 6 of the Seth only run starts with me not remembering the enemy or boss layouts of this map, so I immediately head down to the village for no apparent reason. I end up trying to save the children, but I did not end up making it in time since I had to rescue Erica to keep her alive. After realizing the boss was basically towards the top of the map, I make my way up there while fighting through the entire army with a stat lowered Seth. Seeing as though paladins ride horses, I don't understand why stats get lowered by so much. I mean, I guess Erica is carrying all of our equipment, so Seth's horse must be over encumbered. Who knows? But I'm able to take out the boss pretty easily and finish the chapter while getting Seth to level 8. In chapter 7, I realized while trying to edit the video that I had lost footage of this chapter. So I have recorded footage of gameplay in the background, meaning this is my second time playing through it. Let's call this the B timeline. My Seth on this run is a lot weaker since I did not spend as much time trying to farm XP and get the stat boosters. However, since Seth is still a broken unit, this makes no difference in how fast I'm able to finish the chapter, and the boss goes down easy so I can continue to chapter 8. Sadly enough, I also lost footage for chapter 8, so I'm still on the B timeline as I was in chapter 7. I accidentally deployed Ross and Calm, but I used Calm to carry Erica through the map for me. I make Ephraim's group discard all their equipment so they can't do any damage to the enemy, and make them stand in the corner as I continue to use Seth to run through the map with Seth's overwhelming abilities. Even though this is the B timeline, Seth is still incredibly strong. Kyle ended up dying from no mistakes of my own, and I continue like he never existed in the first place. I realized I never purchased or traded any javelins in the B timeline to Seth, so these mages make this map take a lot longer than it should have, but I ended up reaching the boss and completing the chapter without any more issues. Back to the original timeline with chapter 9, we find that Garrick, Inez, and Tethys are stuck in a fort surrounded by enemy soldiers. I first try to head to the bottom and recruit Garrick so I can use him to recruit Marissa and receive the Stam Shear, which is a pretty high critical hit weapon like the Killing Edge. But this plan doesn't end up working out, and I didn't bring Erica close enough to recruit the green units before I end up killing Marissa by mistake. I thought that I shouldn't try to retry the chapter since this was definitely my fault, so I went on to just defeat the boss and move on to the next chapter, chapter 11. Chapter 11 was the hardest chapter so far, and the first chapter to give me an actual game over. In this map, Seth gets overwhelmed so much by enemies that they start to pincer attack Erica and go in for kills. This starts a new dilemma in the run where Pack Mule Erica has now become a complete liability. But I am finally able to make my way to the map and meet up with Dozla, but we can't recruit him because Laertel died, so I end up searching the map for the last enemy and complete the chapter. In chapter 12 of the Seth only run, we are forced to deploy Saleh, so I removed all of his equipment to make sure he doesn't do any of the fighting. I try to make my way up the map while baiting spiders and gargoyles to attack Seth, and I make my way all the way up to the village where you can find Evelyn to recruit him, but I'm unable to do so because dropping Erica would mean she would get killed. So Tana ends up being surrounded by gargoyles instead, leaving Seth to have to carry Erica through the horde of enemies awaiting him. Saleh also gets surrounded, but since Seth is slowed down by carrying Erica, he's not able to fight his way through fast enough to save him. I end up recruiting Ewan and stealing his energy ring for the +2 strength boost, and now our Seth is looking basically unkillable. I take out the boss and the remaining enemies to finish the chapter, and overall this game is starting to become more difficult in how I strategize moving Erica around. I can't just use other flyers to pick her up and move her out the way, because she can still get overwhelmed and killed. This is just like a normal run of the game. Erica is a liability and needs to be protected at all costs. Alright, we are more than halfway into the Seth only run of Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, and we continue on to chapter 13. I start the map by deploying Vanessa and using her to pick up Erica to a safe location, then rush Seth in the battlefield like a homicidal maniac as he begins to take care of a large amount of enemy units. I actually made a small mistake and put Vanessa in range of an enemy ballista, and now I'm forced to rescue Erica with Seth to continue playing the chapter. This stops me from being able to recruit Cormag as our last buyer for the run, as well as Amelia for her speed wing, which becomes a big problem as we continue to the run. This loss of speed actually made Seth not fast enough to double the Demon King, meaning the rest of this run is going to be an RNG fest. But there aren't many enemies that can hurt Seth in this chapter, so it's relatively easy. And on top of that, this is a survive chapter, so after waiting a few turns, we can move on to chapter 14. I start chapter 14 by trying to head to the left side of the map as soon as possible. I know one of the chests contains an energy ring and now be used to fully cap out Seth's strength. I use the entrance of the door as a choke point to take out the enemy cavaliers that spawn on the bottom of the map, and continue my way through the map to recruit Renat and start my way towards the boss Carlisle. He has a wind sword, which is one of the only 2 swords that have 2 range in this game, but it doesn't matter because Seth does not care about any of that. I take out Carlisle and use Renat's secret card to enter the secret shop and purchase a bunch of killer lances and killing edges, as well as silver blades to use for the remainder of the run. We skip a short cutscene where Joshua's mother is killed and continue on to chapter 15. Chapter 15 is where this run starts to show a high level of difficulty if you don't know what you're doing. I tried to deploy Dozla so he can stand at the temple, so he can hold on to Erica while Seth clears out the rest of the map, so I run to the top left and defeat Kalik. and he goes down very easily. He gives us the Hoping Guard, which ends up getting stolen from me later in the next chapter, but besides that, Ephraim and Dosel and Noel show up at the bottom left side of the map, and they're in a horrible position, so it's really hard to rescue them. Thankfully, and also hilariously, Dosel is surprisingly tanky, and he's tanky enough to never die if you place him on the fort in the first turn. So you just use him to rescue Ephraim, stand on the fort, and you're good to go. But, of course, Noel cannot be saved, and he is banished to the Shadow Realm for the rest of the run. I spend my time finding useful items hidden in the map, and then head down to clear the bottom enemies, and then take on Valter in Mortal Kombat. I was worried Valter would proc Pierce and do a lot of damage based on his basically being able to use Pierce to pierce through my defenses to do actual damage to Seth, but this didn't actually end up happening, and after 3 stabs of the steel lance, he goes down pretty easily. And then after that, we just move on to chapter 16. This chapter is an absolute cakewalk in comparison to the last one. None of the enemies pose any threat to Seth besides the Purge mages towards the top hand side of the map. Like I said earlier, while I was trying to get treasure chests on this map, I ended up getting the Hopling Guard stolen off of Dusel, and I wasn't able to get it back because I didn't have the thief of my own. So Seth tries to kill the thief before he's able to steal more stuff, but it was too late. So unfortunately I lose the Hopling Guard, so hopefully it doesn't come into play that I get crit further into the future, but well, it is what it is if we do. I'm able to clear out the rest of the map before I fight Orson, and find out that Orson actually has a customized dialogue with Seth. So it actually felt like this is a battle that was supposed to happen in the game, and it's like actually canon. I decided to not kill the 2 staff users to allow Orson to receive enough handicap for this climactic battle and start this fight to the death. Even though Orson was a formidable opponent, at the end he was not strong enough for Seth, and he proves that he's a better knight, so we can move on to chapter 17. Chapter 17 is honestly a cakewalk as well, since all you have to do to complete the chapter is to kill Leon. I rushed Seth up to him as soon as possible to get the job done quick. I thought the enemy druids might give Seth some trouble since his resistance is pretty low, but they actually went down super easy, so all that was left was to take down Leon. So I hit him with a nice crit with a killer lance, and just one last hit, he went down without any more issues. I wish I could say this chapter was a prerequisite to making chapter 18 also easy, but I would be completely wrong. This chapter was absolute hell. I think I ended up dying about 10 times or so on this chapter alone due to multiple reasons. 1, Seth's resistance is low, so that means that anytime Gorgons hit him, he dies in about 3 hits. And there are Gorgons that have moved stone, which automatically means Seth is dying that round. And 3rd, Seth cannot kill a Gorgon in 1 hit, meaning every time I go into combat, I either have a chance of losing 1/3 of my health, or I get turned to stone and I just need to reset, period. This was a true RNG fest, and it took time to complete, and honestly made this run way harder than I ever wanted it to be. So we ended up getting through after many attempts, and end up losing Dacel based on a short misplay. But we were able to do it and move our way on to chapter 19. Chapter 19 is actually pretty easy since it's another survival chapter. I actually lost footage of this chapter and did not feel like going back to the B timeline to do it again. So long story short, I get to Cheng and Erica to the top left area of the map so I can use as a choke point. I use Dozla and Cyrene as human meat shields and sacrifice them for the greater good so we can camp out there in the rest of the chapter to complete it. Chapter 20 of the Seth only run is actually a strange one. I thought it was going to be easy, besides the boss of course, but keeping Erica alive has become an issue again. There are a lot of gargoyles that sneak past Seth to try to kill Erica, making it an incredibly tedious chapter to do. Even after clearing out all the enemies, Seth cannot one-round the boss, even with the Adoma, meaning that the final chapter is going to be even scarier. But lucky enough, I ended up getting a lucky 9% crit, so it actually didn't end up being a big issue at all. And we move on to the last chapter. We are finally here, the last chapter. Remember when I said chapter 18 was hell? I was wrong. This map is entirely based on luck. There's nothing else that is at play. Funny enough, in my first attempt, I made it to the Demon King. But since Seth was unable to double or crit the boss, there was literally no way for him to win fast enough to keep the other enemies away from killing all the lords before I was able to win. And since the devs hate you on this map, you have to replay the run from the start every time. So you have to keep fighting Leon until you get the win to fight the Demon King again. So I decided I need to change my strategy. Maybe the meat shield idea from chapter 19 it could work. So it might be able to push me towards a win. I just need a good enough RNG for Seth to dodge the Demon King at least 3 times with that 70 hit % chance. I would use all of my other units to pull aggro away from Seth and allow him to heal when needed, and this strategy would allow me to get the win. Even after all this time of going solo, it turns out Seth's friends are his true power after all. And after one last swing from the Adoma, I did it. I defeated the Demon King. Peace was brought back to the land, and Seth was praised as one of the greatest knights who ever lived. The only cost was all the friends that got him there in the first place. But that's it for the video, guys. This run was incredibly fun and is inspiring me to do my own Iron Man run of Sacred Stones as well, so be on the lookout for that. If you like these types of videos, be sure to subscribe. I put a lot of time and effort into making these, so I really appreciate the support. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.